to Speaking and Speech with Kiki. This is lesson 4. We are going to talk about your hands. First, let's start with a quick review of the last lesson and the last lesson's reading. Last lesson, we talked about posture, Superman, and fashion. Okay, from the reading talked about hormones. I thought it was interesting because it's basically being more scientific. The hormones that they mentioned were testosterone in both men and women, and cortisol. Increased testosterone leads to increased confidence, and lower cortisol leads to less anxiety. And that's what we want when we're public speaking, because we don't want a physical reaction, meaning if you're so stressed out that your body is reacting to the cortisol and the high anxiety, you're going to sweat a lot, you're going to fidget. Even if you have those feelings, we want to hide them as best we can. One of the things this article, How to Be Confident and Reduce Stress in 2 minutes per day, what they're talking about is, so first they talked about the hormones, then they talked about the power poses. I talked about the Superman pose. I don't know if you remember. It's the arm in the air like he's about to take off. I feel very confident when I do that pose. But they were talking about the Wonder Woman pose. His shoulders back, chest out. Da, 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 da. Also talked about high power body language and low power body language. You're open, standing with shoulders back, confidence seems to be dripping off of you. You seem very powerful. The lower power body language was hands crossed, touching your face, holding yourself, slouching, slumping. Those are all positions that show that you are not feeling confident, you're trying to protect yourself, and you're not open to what's outside of you. And then what should you do? You should stand like Wonder Woman every day for 2 minutes, and you'll just feel better in general. I'm all for feeling better in general, so I'm gonna try it. Speaking of trying things, did you try the 10 titles for 30-day challenge? If you could leave me a comment telling me if you started the challenge, how you feel about it. Even if you only did 5 titles, that's fine. You're doing it as long as you do it for 30 days. That's the key. And so that's the article about what you should be doing and posture. When you're preparing for public speaking, it's really helpful to see what you're doing. My point was to record yourself giving an opinion. For example, the last class I said make a video about fashion, and I'm hoping to hear from you with a link, or you can email it to me. My email address, by the way, is on every worksheet. So if you download the worksheet, right at the top it has my email address. Let's talk about fashion. In the pronunciation section of the homework, there was an article about fashion and confidence. Their point was about a social experiment that was basically people were given lab coats, white lab coats, and they were told these were from doctors. Some people were just wearing their regular street clothes, and some people were given white lab coats, but they were told that they were from artists, because, when you're painting, protect your clothes. So the way people thought about the coat changed how well they did on tests they were given. Interesting, right? The last thing is I wanted to mention that the article talked about the Wonder Woman pose and I talked about the Superman pose, and I just wanted to ask you guys to let me know which do you think is easier to do, more your style, something you would do, the Wonder Woman pose or the Superman pose? Do you think it matters which pose you choose? Is one going to be more comfortable for men and one is going to be more comfortable for women? But I just wanted to hear your opinion. And if you can say why, that would be great. And then when you're talking, try to give an example, your own example of when you had to make a choice between two things and one seemed more appropriate for women, one seemed more appropriate for men, and then give a reason why. So, choosing baby clothing, pink or blue, from your own life. Think about it. It's not clear why men prefer A and women prefer B. When I first moved to Korea, I was happy to see so many men walking around in pink shirts. I thought it showed confidence in their masculinity. In America, most men stay away from pink. They think it's feminine. Cultural difference that is, I think, refreshing. Okay, today we're going to talk about hands. Hand gestures and the way they communicate. First of all, I want to talk about communicating with your hands. Not just what to do with your hands, but how to use your hands to communicate. When you say a number, show that number with your fingers. The reason to do that is it keeps track of things. So for example, if you have 3 points, you can say I have 3 points. Number 1, blah, 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 blah. Number 2, blah, 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 blah. And number 3. So it keeps the timeline going. That's one reason to show numbers with your hands. Another reason to show numbers with your hands is it has a certain power to it. The same way that it organizes information on a piece of paper. When you see a piece of paper and there's 1 and 2 and 3, it organizes it. But it's also, numbers have a certain power. So when you're talking about the first thing we need to talk about is there's a certain power to the number 1, 2, and 3. Once you get into numbers like 15, we don't use our hands anymore because those numbers are too big and they don't have as much force as the first few numbers. My top 5. Number 1. It has a certain feeling of building up the emotion.